future of retail Asia with Jun and Imran, powered by Aimazing.
Welcome back to the future of retail Asia. I'm Imran.
And I'm Jun. We are happy to have Dominic Chew with us today in the studio. Welcome, Dom.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Dominic Chew has had over 20 years of brand strategy and design innovation experience. He has spent a decade in multinational brand agencies and another decade with property developers. His recent appointments include Chief Marketing Officer for CFLD International, SVP and Head of Marketing and Communications for Frasers Property, and VP of Brand and Strategic Marketing for City Developments Limited. He is currently embarking on a new approach to design innovation training and providing design innovation consultancy by founding and setting up Hedge Idea Lab, a boutique agency designed for impact creation.
I think design innovation is about solving complex problems. How do we apply this in the retail industry?
Sure. I'm glad you asked about design innovation. So in the framework for design innovation, there are three aspects of it. It's about building desirability. The second would be about feasibility of the product or the services that we have to offer. And the last would be business viability. And I would like to talk a bit more about this building of desirability because it enables us to take information that Aimazing actually compiles. And the question is that what do we do with this information to actually build desirability?
Right.
So even if you look at it from a segment perspective, I would like to challenge retailers today to relook at their definition of how they segment even their own customers, to maybe look at some of these sacred cows and to ask ourselves, should some of these sacred cows be killed? For example, I get a lot of input that the luxury segment is very different, for example, from, let's say, people who buy handphones.
Right.
The mobile segment, right?
Right.
But are we then saying that affluent people don't use handphones? Does that mean that the iPhones that they use, the same model, has a different function? No. It's the same person using the same product and the same feature.
That's right.
And thus often, we tend to segment this kind of customer base artificially.
Right.
And then we are unable to execute something that's really viable from there because we have these preconceived ideas that affluent will only eat at high end, but why can't an affluent eat at a yakun?
Right.
Don't you think a affluent would want a traditional Singapore breakfast once in a while? Besides a St. Regis international spread, right?
Right.
So I guess design innovation actually goes back to the core, which if we say that we put the customer in the center, then the question is, with all the data that is coming to me, correct, how do I build preference for the customer? And I guess that's what the value add of design innovation would help retailers to develop these brands.
Very nice.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think also like just now you mentioned that, so we're interesting that seeing a mall as a brand, right? And then we have a chat with you before, like you always mention about like making a brand desirable. And then with the popularity of the e-commerce and us now living in the new norm, right? And then how can we make more desirable?
So the first thing that I would look at is customer journeys.
Yep.
So you're able to track, Aimazing is able to track customers, from one point to another to record purchases. And the question then is, what do we do with these purchases as a mall operator, right? So in terms of design thinking, a lot of mall operators tend to do what other malls are doing. But in design innovation, using, let's say, a simple tool of alternate worlds, right? Besides thinking about what the retail industry would do, why don't we think about, let's say, for example, what you mentioned e-commerce. What would Amazon do if Amazon staff were to run this mall?
Right.
So chances are they would probably, with your data, right? People who ate at this restaurant also consider eating at this restaurant.
Right.
So then when you actually push information like that on a customer journey, right, you would find that getting the insights, just using a simple tool called alternate worlds, you're able to actually put a different approach. And here's where the greatest challenge would be, which is to understand, what is best case studies from another industry and to look at it from an applicable a possibility and feasibility of putting it into the mall.
Right, right.
And I think it makes a lot of sense because it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
The information is still the same.
Right.
The question is what you do with the information.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I love is a few points that you mentioned earlier, right? One is that brand desirability is not just about having a nice design. It's
Yes.
about actually understanding the customer and using that data to then be relevant.
Right.
I think the thing about implementing these strategies, I think, is about understanding what is the data that we collect, how do we clean it, how is it relevant, how do we use it, and I think, in fact, when we talk to people in the industry, it's not that they don't want to do these things. I think what we also find is that there is a challenge in how do we collect it, how do we use it. I think being in the industry for more than a decade, right? Could you share what you think could be the gaps, right, in the kind of data we collect, or maybe the gaps in how it's used?
Sure. I think the one thing that I feel is a very practical gap.
Yep.
Is this thing called departments in a retail mall, which means if let's say I was dealing with Aimazing,
Yeah.
I would be in the IT department, right? Correct?
Right, yeah.
But the customer service probably is under the Marcoms and customer service department.
Right.
But all of it has data
Yes.
on the customer.
Yes.
Correct. The frustration of a customer would be recorded on, let's say, for example, customer service,
Yes.
needs to be combined with this person's customer journey.
Yes.
And when you understand the preference, right, in order to do, for example, service recovery, it's not going to be, here's a Starbucks voucher. You want to say, Mr. So-and-so, we are so sorry, right? But we understand that, you usually like, at 10 o'clock, you usually like your latte, skinny, 1 sugar. Correct? And we have that prepared for you at Starbucks right now.
Yes.
And we are really sorry, if you just drop by and just give your name, they have already prepared that for you. Now, how would you feel? The issue right now is the compartmentalization, that IT is one department itself that, does excellent, awesome stuff with Aimazing. But customer service, we're going to do our own thing. We need to do service recovery has nothing to do with the data that you have. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that can malls function and kill this thing called departments?
Right. Right.
And the mecca that I would have is that if we have one single knowledge management system,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Everything from input of the customer journey
Yes.
to service delivery or failed service delivery to even recovery, and so on and so forth, and start build this. It's not about loyalty management, but to start build a preference management so that you can actually deliver desirability, because you cannot deliver desirability when you don't know the customer's preference.
Yes.
Yeah. So unifying that data approach and then the approach of the actual humans in the team to
Absolutely.
deal with the customer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think this align back like what you mentioned, right? The customers is the center of the shopping mall, right?
Yeah.
I think you are the big supporter of the marketing to personal customers' preference. So just now you already give a lot of example like Starbucks voucher, you need to know the customer's name. But do you have any example of creating a great experience by understanding the customers' their preference?
Well, sure. I mean, I would use me as an example because I'm a customer, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's very challenging, right? When malls tend to like this whole concept of to be different. Every mall claims that they are different, right? But the challenge that they have is that retailers actually want uniformity. Correct? If you think about, if I went to a Hermes store, or I went to an LV store, or I went to a Bread Talk store, don't you want uniformity in terms of service delivery?
Yep.
So that you can create your own identities. But yet the malls, who have all the similar brands,
Yes.
claim differentiation.
Right.
So at the end of the day, right, how do you deliver that kind of desirability? And it really boils down to one thing, right, which is personalization. The service delivery, the last mile, how you are serviced. So for example, I actually I'm wearing CYC shirts. Right. And there used to be several CYC stores around.
Yeah.
Correct. And I love their tradition, I love their cutting, I love their Egyptian cotton. But there's this one person called Rice who designs all my shirts for the past 20 years. And they've all been the same format. CYC could have done that. But I can tell you why I keep going back to Rice, because he's so much into his craft
Yes.
that he was saying that, I think this kind of button, I saw something in Jalan Sultan. Let me go and find the buttons in Jalan Sultan for you.
For you. Right. Right.
Now,
right.
that's going to be the difference, isn't it? I will still buy from CYC, correct? But CYC through Rise knows my preference.
Yes.
And if you look at this preference management, right, it's not something that's new. In fact, when I was a little kid, I was 6 years old, and I had this realization that at 6 years old, I saw preference management at work. And this was the hawker center char kway teow uncle,
Yes.
who knows that when you walk in is I hiam my ham, and yours will be, my hiam, kat zui ham, just by looking at your face without identifying, and your name and or just by looking at your face, the person knows and can customize your order and your preference, right? So while these are early days of what I've noticed about preference management, the challenge really is that person, everything is in the person's head and it's not transferable. So in today's technology, given that Aimazing is able to track customer journeys, given that you may have even facial recognition, or check-in codes, that you can actually track a whole entire customer's journey. Why can't the same technologies be pumped into, for example, service delivery of the frontline staff, where the frontline folks are able then to address customers by name, correct, and deliver preference services?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the last mile, isn't it? Where, as I said, where departments don't talk because they feel that functions are separated. But if you actually collate data all together and develop one insight, because it's the same customer that you are dealing with.
Yes.
The same customer that went through your AI data points and journey is the same customer that is at your customer service right now.
Yes.
Correct? It's not, you can be two different departments, but it's the same customer. So if you really say that customer is at the center of it all, then shouldn't data, correct, be one collection point to identify preferences?
I think that's a very incredible insight, actually, right? Because you have all these people in the malls, right? So everyone from your customer service to your retail assistants to even the security people, even the people who are dealing with the social media and the marketing and the tenant management that actually have such a huge wealth of information. And I think what you say is true, right? Actually, there is a humongous knowledge base that just hasn't been tapped yet.
Absolutely.
Like we haven't figured out how do we put this data together, how do we humanize this, and how do we unify this, right? So that everyone can see that thing. I think one thing that I was quite interested or intrigued about is about the individual customer experiences, and I think we've talked about this before. But how do we do this in scale, right? So that means ideally we actually have 1,000 or 10,000 customer experiences based on their preferences happening at the same time,
Correct.
right, in the mall, right? And I think actually, I think that's kind of like our wish list, right? So I think from Aimazing side, we do see or we envision that this could actually become like the new Great Singapore Sale, right? So like, hey, could we delight customers at scale with technology, with data, and then could we have like the new Black Friday, Cyber Monday, 10/10, 9/9, which was just yesterday, 11/11 events live in the mall? We say, hey, we know that these are the stuff that you like, these are the transactions you make, these are the brands that you love, and we have all this curated. These are all lined up for 11/11. You buy this today, you get this extra voucher. Or if everyone in the mall gets purchases and we hit 10 million today, everyone in the mall gets a $10 voucher, for example, right? So like what do you think about something like this? Using data, using automation to then create completely new forms of brand and shopping events in the mall.
I think the current global pandemic calls for it. The challenge about most operators today is that they function as and I've been with 3 landlords in a decade. I function that way as well. Like I'm the landlord and they are the retailers. It is not that we are in the same shopping mall, delivering the same service together, right?
Exactly.
So if you look at the whole idea about desirability, is also to understand not just preferences, but the question is, with the data that we have, how do we generate desirability for this person to come back?
Right.
I can tell you that the current situation in malls today is very much adhering to COVID-19 rules.
Understandably,
Correct. So
yes,
even
yeah.
if they are successful in drawing customers back, I can tell you that they don't know how to repeat it because they don't know what was successful and what was not. Correct? They're offering the same thing and it's still back to the same offerings. Now, I'll just give you a good example, right? So even during the COVID situation where we know that, COVID is still rampant in Singapore. So for example, if you had data on this customer that the person actually had a shopping list of groceries at the supermarket, and you know that this groceries would probably deplete in 3 weeks or 2 weeks.
Right.
Correct? Prompting the customer who may be in your loyalty base to ask whether, hey, would you like to come back again? And if you wanted to repeat your order, why don't we pack everything and you just pick it up? We will ensure that the fish is fresh. Otherwise, if you check and and it's not fresh enough, we'll replace it on the spot for you. And it gives, so desirability here is not just the high tall order of personalization of shirts,
Right.
but it could be also necessities. I think it starts with that kind of desirability.
The mundane, right?
Exactly. You know that, for example, the Milos that I buy is not going to be the ones in the packet because of the terrible paper straws that fall apart. It's going to be cans.
Right.
For example.
Right.
Correct. So and you already have this data.
Yeah.
The question is, what are you and the tenant doing about it to attract people back again? And once you have this mundane, it goes on. If you knew that the person, for example, missed her pedicure, manicure, correct? And the person actually works there. And for example, if it's raining outside, can't the system just prompt the person that, hey, it's really raining outside, and Grab's going to be difficult to pick up right now. It's going to be expensive. It could be caught in a jam. Why don't you just spend half an hour and finish off your pedicure that you missed? It will give you a 20% off.
Right.
If you came in now.
Yep.
So, and this is what I mean by preferences. Haircuts, I go there every 3 weeks. In the second week, wouldn't a prompt be nice? So I get this stickiness back to the mall, and not always it's about purpose of visits and high tall orders. Sometimes it's to do the mundane stuff. And if you can do ordinary things extraordinarily,
right?
I think that's where the beautiful part about building desirability kicks in.
Actually, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I think I really like that example. Like, if I know that this customer is going to my shopping mall to have a haircut, right? And then normally people will do every month for the haircut, and then I know my customer's journey. After haircut, they will go for the department store.
Sure.
Why don't I actually put marketing, everything, voucher, everything together? And then after that, I know that you are going to the department store, and then now outside is heavy raining. Why not I give you a massage voucher, 20% off, and then you can keep the customers staying inside the shopping mall.
Correct. So desirability, that we've talked about desirability at two levels. So it's not just about the product that is desirable, but the timing.
Yes.
Is it desirable for you to be outside, heavy rain, caught in the jam? Or is it more desirable for you to be in the mall, having your pedicure, manicure, and enjoying a massage that you missed?
Yes.
Correct. So a lot of people think that this preference and desirability has got to do with a lot of tall order stuff, but sometimes it's as simple as remarketing. The difference here of making it desirable is the timing.
Is the situational
And the situation.
context. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very interesting. I think I can't agree more. Yeah, if you only have a more in depth, but very sad we don't have more time. So then, what will be your advice for both tenants and landlord, right? So if you will have a more manager in front of you, and then what will be the advice for them? And obviously, it's like if you have a retailer, right, what will be your advice for the retailer?
My advice to mall management today would be to continue to build desirability. You collect a lot of data points from Aimazing, from customer service. You collect it from even traffic counters and so on and so forth. The question is, what are you doing with it?
Yes.
If you use design thinking, could you challenge yourself that let's just not take frameworks that every loyalty management system pushes to you, but let's take frameworks from other industries, like the example that I gave was Amazon about preference management, as well as recommendations. People like your persona, would that have bought this also bought this as well.
Yes.
And this will actually then expand the amount of time that a customer spends in the mall, and of course, with the increased time, we're looking at increased expenditure. So building desirability is important, and I feel that when you build desirability, the rest will take care of itself.
Yep.
And just focus on that. When we say that we focus on the customer, it has to benefit the customer. The customer has to feel the difference.
Yeah.
Yep.
To retailers, my advice would be never sell something you wouldn't buy yourself. I mean, it's about that passion of giving service and selling products that you yourself would buy. And very often, retailers and shop owners don't actually buy from their own shops, right? Even the staff don't buy from their own shops, and they don't provide service that they themselves would appreciate. So, I guess what I'm looking at is also conviction. If you actually identify that, these are the gaps, I guess maybe, if I use design and innovation frameworks, right? The question to ask is, under what conditions would I actually want to buy from my own shop? What should I change to make sure that even my staff would find my own shop products and experiences appealing? And it starts from there. And if you're able to convince your own staff and the shop owners to buy what they sell, correct, then I think the rest will come, and then it will follow suit. I see.
So we have a last question, and the question is, do you believe that retail will continue to be king, and why?
Wow. I believe that there are two types of kingship. Okay, let's talk about kings, right?
Yeah.
I believe there's a king that kind of exists outside of the customer's life,
Okay.
and they're the ones that go like, boom, this is what I have, correct? Now you take it or you leave it. That's kind of one of the king. That means that they probably sell something that everybody else doesn't have, for example, correct? But there's another type of king, and this king exists within the customer life, and this king knows what is desirable, when it is desirable, and how it is desirable for the customer. Now, in this instance, right, the customer is the one conferring kingship status to the retailer, to the mall. Because why? Without my king, my desires, my needs, my wants will not be fulfilled. So the question then is, with your retail mix, with the experiences that you have, how do you build preference and create desirability so that you can be king that is conferred by the customer? You're not the self-declared king. And I think this would be the mecca for a lot of more operators as well as retailers, that if you wanted to be king, you have to earn it. And it has to be conferred onto you by the customer.
By the customer, by the market. Very deep question. Thank you.
I think sadly that is all time we have today. Thank you, Dom, for coming down and sharing with us your insight.
Thank you, Dom.
Right. So
Most welcome.
to our listener, do reach out to us if you have any question or comments. We would love to hear from you. Right. So you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram as well. So our podcast is on all major streaming platforms and YouTube too. So stay tuned with our next episode.
See you.
See you.
How will retail change post-pandemic? Download the Future of Retail white paper from our website, aimazing.co.